It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 25, looking at the groups and teams of Euro 2024. This episode is looking at Group F: Portugal, Turkey, Czech Republic, and Georgia. Here we go! It's the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada, Series 25. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Connor, and today we are looking at Group F for the Euro Cup 2024 tournament. This group is made up of Portugal, Turkey, Czech Republic, and Georgia.
Yeah, we're currently focused on the 2024 Euro Cup and Copa America. Both of those played in June 2024. And we're producing this groups and team series, and we'll also be producing a player series for each. There are two parts to this media cast.
Yeah, in part one, we'll give a summary of each team's World and Euro Cup histories, and we'll also take a bit of a closer look at their recent history and form, including how they qualified for this tournament.
Yeah, and then in part two, we'll look at the teams in comparison to each other in the groups, looking at their rankings, head-to-head history, and their chances of success. We'll end with a discussion of their prospects and our predictions.
All right, well, let's get going then.
All right, well, we begin with team number one, which is Portugal. And in 1966, Portugal unexpectedly finished third in the World Cup under the leadership of the great Eusebio. They rose again around 1985, where they qualified for both the World and Euro Cups, reaching the semi-finals in the latter there. Both of these, though, represent flashes in the pan of a century where they were otherwise too minor a team to reach a tournament. This all changed in 1996, since which time they've proven a stronger force, a top-tier force, first led by Luis Figo and then by Cristiano Ronaldo, but in both cases with strong supporting casts. Not only did they qualify for all tournaments, but almost always passed the group stage. Having done so every time in Euro Cup play, they looked likely to win as host in 2004, but they were undone by an unlikely Connor.
Greece,
yeah. They redressed that in 2016 with their first and only title. World Cup play is a bit less stellar, but fourth place in 2006 was the peak, having passed the group stage in 4 of the 6 editions since the turn of the century.
Portugal's overall record does paper over some cracks in the details. Their 2016 Euro Cup title did see them finish third in a weak group stage, where they were lucky to advance with just 3 points. They also advanced third in their group in 2020. In qualifying, they often finished second in their group, lacking the consistency of, say, in England or Spain. They required playoffs to reach 3 of the last 4 World Cups. That includes their 2022 campaign, though they did pass the group stage and actually bettered their round of 16 finishes in World Cup 2018 and Euro 2020. Having said that, the Euro 2024 qualifying campaign was entirely convincing.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at that campaign. We're going to look at the Nations League 2022 and 23. And actually, Portugal's not really the reason we're looking at that competition, because it was a fairly standard performance for them. Do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, they were paired with Spain, Switzerland, and Czech Republic, who they also meet here, and they beat Czech Republic twice. But they were bested by Spain and exchanged home wins with Switzerland. So they actually finished second, a point behind Spain, so it was fairly close. But we talk about kind of Spain's consistency in World Cup and Euro qualifying, so you probably would favor Spain to win that group, which they narrowly did.
Yeah, they did, and they went on to the finals there. Now let's take a look at the qualifying campaign for this Euro Cup.
Yeah, well, we talked about it being entirely convincing, and it was, as they won 10 games from 10, scoring 36 goals and conceding just 2. It probably wasn't the most difficult group. Slovakia were the main competition, and they finished second. the group also containing Luxembourg, Iceland, Bosnia, and Liechtenstein.
Yeah, I mean those teams are reasonably strong, but I would say third-tier teams. So a bit of an easy run for them there.
Yeah, but impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, yeah, good consistency. Okay, let's move on to our second team, and we'll begin with the longer history before you give us kind of the more recent history. So Turkey. Turkey has a longer soccer history than many realize, their first appearance coming in 1934 World Cup qualifying. However, they've only been sporadically successful, more dramatically in World Cup play, but more regularly in Euro Cup action. Their 1954 World Cup appearance, featuring a big win over South Korea, is more than most second-tier teams can boast, and a third-place finish in the 2002 World Cup, which was only their second World Cup appearance, was stunning. They haven't qualified for the World Cup since then, but their Euro Cup record is better. Too weak to reach the 4-team cup from its start in 1960. They did come close when it expanded to 8 teams in 1980. However, it took a further expansion to 16 teams, that was in 1996, to reach the tournament. However, they have done so fairly regularly since. 2000 to 2008 proves to be their strong period as they added to their World Cup success with their only 2 trips past the group stage of the Euro Cup in 2000 and 2008. It was a big disappointment not to reach the Cup in 2004, probably at the height of their powers there. They challenged England in the main qualification round, but then lost to an unlikely Latvia in the playoffs.
We consider Turkey a third-tier team for the most part, but they are a second-tier team in Euro Cup play since the turn of the century. Their record of finished second in Euro Cup qualifying continued in 2020 and carried over to their 2022 World Cup campaign and earned them a playoff spot, which they lost to Portugal. That showed some recovery from their previous campaigns. In UEFA Nations League, they had suffered relegation to League C, but they did not belong among such teams and easily won their group in 2022-23 to return to League B. Being seeded 4th in 2024 Euro qualifying as a result was an insult, but they responded with their first ever top place finish in a qualifying group.
Okay, well, we kind of gave spoilers for the next section there, but let's take a look at their 2022-23 Nations League campaign.
Yeah, they were in League C. As we mentioned, the competition was Luxembourg, Faroe Islands, and Lithuania, so not the strongest of teams. They won their first 4 games, but then tied at home with Luxembourg 3-3 before, I guess, suffering the slight embarrassment of a 2-1 defeat in Faroe Islands. But those last 2 results did not knock them off first place.
Yeah, pretty flaccid ending to that campaign, but probably didn't belong in League C there. But it kind of does speak to their inconsistency, do you think?
It does. And I think, you know, kind of after they kind of peak, you know, shortly after the turn of the century, I think we've seen that inconsistency kind of undoing them a little bit.
Yeah, let's see how that played out in 2024 Euro Cup qualifying.
Yeah, like you said, they kind of ridiculously came in as a pot 4 team, but they performed well, especially on the road, where they suffered a draw in Wales, but otherwise won all their games. And they actually exchanged away wins with Croatia. Exchanging away wins doesn't happen all that often.
Mm-hmm.
So they were pretty consistent. Other than the draw in Wales, they tied Armenia at home, but were consistent otherwise, Latvia being the other team. This was actually quite a competitive group that kind of went down to the wire, but Turkey and Croatia finished the top of the group, just a point apart, and Wales 4 points back of Croatia, and Armenia 4 points back of that.
Yeah, I mean, Armenia can be a bit of a spoiler team, but you'd have to say that tying them at home was a bit of a lapse, but the only lapse really in the campaign. Otherwise, you know, finishing above Croatia, a great result.
It really is. And Armenia did prove spoiler to Wales, who came in, I believe, as a 2nd seed. A big win for Armenia in Wales, really costing Wales right at the end there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as you said in the kind of recent summary, that is the first time they finished first in a qualifying group. So they take that into the cup with them. Let's move on to our third team, the Czech Republic. Of course, they are descendants of Czechoslovakia. They well, I'll just start with the kind of the longer history summary. So their forebears, Czechoslovakia, was a team with strong though inconsistent record, a strong but inconsistent record in soccer, and Czech Republic largely mirrors that, though with a bit of a qualitative difference between their World Cup and Euro Cup form. Czechoslovakia was intermittently a top-tier team with 5 finishes in the top 4 over both competitions until 1980. There are no parallels in the timing of their success between the competitions. 2 second-place finishes in World Cup play, that was 1934 and 1962, and 1 Euro title in 1976 were their highest achievement. So no real period of strength, but intermittent there. However, their third-tier form saw them failing to reach around half the tournaments, looking especially weak after 1982. Czech Republic immediately recaptured their top-tier form with a second-place finish in their first Euro tournament in 1996, and they retained at least second-tier form in Euro play by reaching the tournament every time since, and passing the group stage half the time, the highest point being the semi-finals in 2004. That's really in stark contrast to their third-tier World Cup form, which even for Czechoslovakia had been weak from 1966 onwards, with the exception of a good showing in 1990. But Czech Republic reached only 1 World Cup finals. That was in 2006, and they were knocked out at the group stage there, despite being a promising team.
Yeah, there was big expectation for them that year.
Yeah.
The different performances in World Cup and Euro Cup play continues, having finished third in their qualifying groups for the last 4 World Cups and failing to qualify since 2006, but finishing second in their qualifying group for the last 4 Euro Cups, except 2020, where they finished first. They have qualified for every cup in the Euros since 1996. Recent form simply maintains that. Their trip to the quarterfinals in 2020, repeating a pattern of passing the group stage in every second Euro Cup. Those results suggest they are no match for the top-tier teams, even if they do earn the odd upset. And that is well shown in their 2023 Nations League campaign, where they beat Switzerland and tied Spain, but were demoted from League A as a bottom finisher.
Okay, once again, we have spoiled the next section. But in general, what do you make of them? Like very kind of inconsistent, I guess. If they're stronger in Euro Cup play, then we can expect a little more from them here.
We probably can. It's a very odd thing. You know, those qualifying campaigns for World Cup and Euro Cups are only 2 years apart. You know, so obviously teams rise and fall, but to consistently perform better in Euros and the World Cup is a bit of a strange one.
It really is, and they also have a bit of an odd pattern, which you can see on the graphic if you're watching on YouTube, that they basically pass the group stage every second time, and since they passed in 2020, then they're due to be knocked out in the group stage here.
Quite possibly.
We'll talk about that a bit later, but let's move on to the Nations League performance that you mentioned.
Yeah, it started promisingly with their home win over Switzerland and draw with Spain. A very good start, but after that, they lost all their other games, including twice to Portugal, who they meet here. So 4 points from 6 games saw them relegated to League B, which is, you know, probably a little bit more commensurate with their strength.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's take a look, though, at the campaign for this World Cup, where they came in second, actually.
Yes, they did. Second, but tied on points with first place Albania. The third place team was Poland. Much more would have been expected for Poland in this group, which also contained Moldova and Faroe Islands. So Again, not the strongest group. Czech Republic's only loss was a 3-0 away defeat in Albania, which helped Albania finish first. Other than that, they tied a couple games, but we're pretty consistent, and we're especially strong at home, winning 3 of their 4 games and tying the other.
Yeah, it wasn't a good campaign for Poland overall, but besting them is good, and probably a local derby, kind of something that they're delighted about. But then a tie in Moldova, I mean, they would have won but for that. Oh, Connor, I think your mic's off there.
I was going to say strange group, as we said, because Moldova only lost 2 of their 8 games. So, you know, surprisingly competitive.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. Okay, well, now we move on to the 4th team, and it is a newcomer to the Euro Cup or to any competition. It's Georgia. And Georgia emerged from the breakup of the Soviet Union and played their first qualification in the 1996 Euro Cup. That proved their strongest campaign, finishing in 3rd place with 15 points. Subsequent World Cup campaigns established a pattern of earning 10 points and finishing 2nd last, which, with minor variation, they have maintained with uncanny accuracy. In Euro Cup play, they followed their best result in 1996 with their worst in 2000 and 2004, otherwise rare bottom-of-the-table finishes for them. They then resumed their 2nd last place pattern, earning around 10 points for the next 5 campaigns. Qualification for Euro 2020 and 2024 both ended this way, but promotions from both their 2018 and 19 and their 2022-23 Nations League campaigns earned them playoff spots, and successful navigation through that led to their first appearance at the tournament here.
Yeah, very exciting. Georgia's amazing consistency in finishing 2nd last in their qualifying groups with around 10 points didn't falter much in recent times, except that it was only 5 points in their last 2 World Cup campaigns. They cannot be said on that basis to have shown any recent improvement. Their Nations League campaigns, however, have earned them playoff spots for Euro Cups. In 2020, it was really a golden ticket, as winning their group jumped them ahead of several League C teams. It was a further golden ticket in that the League D teams played amongst themselves, ensuring one of them would reach the Cup. They beat Belarus in the 1st round, but lost to North Macedonia in the 2nd, so disappointment. 2022-23 was more impressive, as they won their Nations League C group over Bulgaria and North Macedonia, and then battled through 2 more difficult rounds of playoffs to reach the Cup. So those wins, the Nations League wins and the playoffs, do suggest improvement.
Yeah, pretty interesting here. We'll take a look at that 2022-23 Nations League campaign in a bit more detail here.
Yeah, and Georgia were quite impressive here. The competition was Bulgaria, North Macedonia, and the weak Gibraltar. But Georgia won all 3 of their games on the road, and actually won 5 of 6 overall, the only blemish, a home draw with Bulgaria. So they finished comfortably in 1st place to be promoted.
Yeah, you know, Bulgaria and North Macedonia, pretty respectable teams there. And Georgia is really, their strength is at home. So doing very well here to do even better on the road than at home. All right, let's move on to the 2024 Euro Cup qualifying campaign.
Yeah, and you won't be surprised to hear that they were 2nd last with around 10 points. 8 points, in fact, just a little bit lower. They won home and away against Cyprus, and then had home draws with Scotland and Norway, but otherwise lost their other games. The worst was a crushing 7-1 home defeat by Spain. But they finished 4th in what was a tough group behind Scotland, Spain, and Norway.
True. Okay, well, that, yeah, so certainly it wasn't their performance in qualifying that got them here. They finished 4th of 5, but it was their Nations League campaign that got them a playoff spot. How did those playoffs go?
Yeah, they had the benefit of playing at home twice, kind of randomly drawn. In the semifinal, they beat Luxembourg 2-0. which is actually impressive because Luxembourg were coming off a very strong Euro qualifying campaign. And that paired them with Greece. Greece likely would have been the favorites in that game. It finished 0-0, but in the lottery of the penalty shootout, Georgia were victorious, winning 4-2 on penalties.
Yeah, so probably the home advantage helping them in that penalty shootout, and here they are.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to part 2, where we kind of compare the teams, and we'll begin that comparison by looking at their pots and rankings. A bit of a weird, or not necessarily weird, but a different system than usual here. How did they decide on this?
Yeah, rather than use overall rankings, FIFA rankings, they basically rank the teams on their qualification performance. So Portugal, with their perfect 10 wins from 10, they actually were other than the host Germany, were the top seed in the tournament. So they were the pot 1 team. Turkey were also group winners. They were the pot 2 team and ranked 7th overall. Czech Republic then were a pot 3 team, and actually they were the lowest ranked team in pot 3. So, not kind of reflective of not the strongest campaign. And then Georgia as a playoff winner, and as a playoff winner in the Group C path, which opened the door to kind of some weaker teams. They come in as essentially the lowest ranked team in the tournament.
Yeah, well, the other playoff winners, Ukraine, and it's eluding me who the other team is. Does it pop into your head?
I will look for that.
Okay. Anyway, Ukraine and the other team were pretty close in qualifying. I know they were in the top 30. So actually, Georgia finished 34th. We saw they finished in 4th place in the qualifying group, so 34th overall. So far back of even the other 2 playoff winners here.
The other team was Poland, and as they beat Wales, we had clearly blocked it from our minds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my excuse, and I'm going to stick with that. Yeah, so Ukraine and Poland are pretty close to the teams, the other teams in pot 4, but Georgia quite a ways off. But again, how much credibility do you place if we say something like Portugal and Turkey came from the top part of the pots, and Czech Republic and Georgia from the bottom? How much credibility do you put into this this system?
I mean, I like that it's merit-based and based on qualification results and not just rankings. But obviously the strength of different groups matters. I mean, Portugal did very well to have a perfect record, but, it was a relatively easy group lacking kind of a true second-tier team. Turkey did well in a competitive group to get there, so perhaps they're deserving of their pot 2 ranking, but typically they would be a pot 3 team or even 4. When you look at some of the teams that are ranked ahead of teams like Denmark and Netherlands, Italy, and Croatia.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do like that it is fully merit-based, but then the strength of the groups they were in plays a role. So, I mean, we end up with Albania in pot 2 and the defending champions, Italy, in pot 4. So, that could create some problems, in the groupings.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's look at the rankings, both FIFA and ELO rankings, and this will probably give us a better idea of where they really do stand in relation to each other.
Yeah, starting with Portugal, they're actually far ahead of the others. They're currently 7th in FIFA and 3rd in ELO, and Portugal have actually been in the top 10 in both systems for the last 7 years, basically, never dropping below 9th at that time. So consistently among the top teams in the world. Yeah,
but as we said, a bit of inconsistency in that they've come 3rd in their 3rd in the group stage for the last 2 tournaments. Is that right, in 2020 as well?
Yeah, it was. So yeah, I mean they get through, but you're right, they're not as convincing.
Yeah,
Euros especially.
I mean, a great team in terms of talent, but maybe not unassailable here. We'll talk about that a bit later. How about Turkey?
Yeah, so Turkey are 37th in FIFA and 29th in ELO. They spent most of the last 10 years kind of in the 30s and 40s, and have probably risen a little bit recently, obviously because of their good results in Euro qualifying.
Yeah, so kind of up and down with the tide here, but more interesting is their relative comparison to Czech Republic. Very tight here.
Yeah, Czech Republic is 39th in FIFA, so 2 points behind Turkey, and 31st in ELO, so 2 points behind them in the ELO rankings as well. So, I mean, that has them basically neck and neck. And like Turkey, Czech Republic has kind of gone up and down. And they also spent most of the last decade in the 30s and 40s in terms of world rankings.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think Turkey a bit more volatile there, but I think it kind of averages out to a similar level over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
How about Georgia?
So Georgia are 77th in FIFA and 52nd in ELO. This does represent a rise from them. They were really in the 70s to even below 100 in the FIFA rankings as recently as 2017. But they've showed, you know, the rankings show a bit of steady improvement, kind of climbing up from that, about 30 places really up to the 77th and 52nd in ELO, which is among the highest rankings they've ever had.
Yeah, they did have a couple of weak qualifying campaigns in that period. They were even below 100 in ELO. That was just in 2015. But yeah, far weaker than the other teams here. Let's see if that plays out in their head-to-head records. We'll begin with, oh, well, why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, so Portugal and Turkey, the record is, I don't think it's quite correct on the graphic, but is 6 wins out of 6 from Portugal. So dominant for Portugal, to say the least.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. I'll have to talk to the responsible person and fire them. In terms of recency, the 2022 World Cup qualifying playoff we saw earlier, playoff in the semi-final round, that was in Portugal, and of course Portugal won once again. That's their most recent meeting.
Yeah, but a significant one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
Portugal and Czech Republic. Portugal, they met 3 times, and Portugal has a slender advantage, winning twice and losing once.
Right, and we're currently not adding the Nations League campaigns. We're going to decide whether we should. Do you think we should add it to the record that we show?
Yeah, we'll see. We focus on Euro and World Cup results because that has been our main focus.
Yeah, not friendlies because we don't consider them that reliable. But anyway, in the Nations League campaign, we did see Portugal beating Czech Republic twice. That's not added to this record. The only time they lost was in that excellent Euro Cup run in 1996 for the Czech Republic, where they beat Portugal in the quarterfinal. But that's the only win that they've managed. Okay, moving on to the next one.
Yeah, Portugal and Georgia, and they have no history. This will be their first competitive meeting.
Right, okay, let's go on to the next one.
Turkey and Czech Republic, a key one because we see how tight and closely matched these teams are in FIFA rankings. And here Turkey has the edge. They have won 3 of the 4 times they've met, Czech Republic winning the other.
Yeah, and 3 of those 4 times were in 2016, both in qualifying where they exchanged away wins, and in the group stage in 2016, which Turkey won. But 2008, do you remember this game? It was pretty memorable in 2008 group stage Euro Cup.
I know Turkey did well that year, but I don't remember that match.
Oh, okay. Well, Turkey came back from 3-0 down, and they scored 3 goals from the 74th minute onwards. Or I guess they came back from 2-0 down and won 3-2 in the end. One of the great Euro Cup games.
Wow.
Okay, next.
Turkey and Georgia, they've met just in 1 qualifying campaign, and Turkey won 1 and they tied the other.
Yeah, no surprise they tied that one in Georgia. No, they tied actually in Turkey, and they won away in Georgia, so that was good, but hardly relevant because it's 2006.
Yeah.
And finally,
Czech Republic and Georgia, they haven't met.
yeah, so they'll be meeting for the first time here. Okay, let's move on to our third comparison factor, and that is the odds. And we have found now odds to win the group rather than the odds to win the tournament, which we were using for earlier groups. So what do we have?
Yeah, so Portugal are given a 67% chance to win the group. Behind them is Turkey with 18% and Czech Republic with 11%. So like the head-to-head, Turkey slightly favored on this measure as well. And then Georgia are given the outside chance of 5%.
All right. Portugal, 67%. Well, let's talk about Portugal. Do you think they are such heavy favorites here?
I mean, I think everything points in that direction. You know, their pot seeding, you know, their world ranking. But I think 67% leaves open a decent possibility still of an upset. And we've seen that they haven't, you know, won their groups for the last couple of years, in fact, finishing third. You know, the World Cup, they did win their group, but they did lose to South Korea in their final match. So I think they're, it's open enough for Portugal that, or open enough of a group that Portugal, you know, should win it, but may not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are a couple of worrying lapses there. In 2020, I do recall it was a pretty tough group, but in 2016, a fairly easy group. Hungary, Iceland, and I can't remember the other team.
I think Albania.
Yeah, possibly. A team not unlike this, because I would say Turkey and Czech Republic are kind of almost third-tier teams here. So there is a chance that they'll take it easy. But the strength of their squad is so impressive that, well, let's say it's first place is there to win, and it would be disappointing if they didn't finish first here.
Yeah, it would be. This is also quite possibly Cristiano Ronaldo's last tournament. The 39-year-old is still with the team. I mean, the World Cup, it was a bit of maybe a bit of drama as he didn't start all of the games, and I think maybe they kind of had to figure out how they were going to use him. But no doubt he'll have an influence, or at least be a talking point of this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, we said in the discussion that the kind of this generation was led by Cristiano Ronaldo. I think they've grown a bit beyond that now, where the squad is strong enough that they can manage without him. We saw that in the World Cup. We've been saying for 2 or 3 tournaments that it could be his last. This really could be his last. But as you say, he might not be a starter there. Of course, they'll be ambitious, I would say, to get to at least the semi-finals, but they've only managed to do that once in recent Euro Cups. Where do you see them landing in the end?
Yeah, probably quarterfinals or semi-finals. I wouldn't say they're nailed on for the semi-finals. I mean, like you said, Ronaldo aside, they are a very, very strong team. They don't always show it. I mean, even in the World Cup, they really could have had a great chance to get to the semifinals, but lost to Morocco. So, you know, that could happen here. I probably see no further than the semifinals, but possibly quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, we got to keep in mind, and I think we said this with the Netherlands too, like in the previous century, which is why we do the long history, Portugal was a bit of a flash in the pan team. So around the mid-60s and then the mid-80s had some good moments, but were generally a weak team. And I'm not sure what the population is in comparison to Netherlands and Belgium, but that's the pattern of these teams, to kind of produce a good generation once in a while. Now, Portugal have been consistent for the last 25 years, so we'd have to say it's more than just a good generation, but they're still not one of the biggest teams in Europe.
Exactly, and I think that's you know, sometimes easily overlooked. You know, they are a good team. I mean, they're in the top 10 in the world, you know, third in ELO, but they're not always, that doesn't mean they're getting to the last 4 of tournaments consistently.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess we're predicting the small possibility of a lapse there. I would say no possibility of not passing the group stage, or almost none, even if it's in third again. And I think you're right. I think quarterfinals and semifinals if they do well. Okay, I think the biggest debate in this group is really between Turkey and Czech Republic. And we've said that Turkey has a bit of an edge. Do you hold to that?
I don't actually. I think the Czech Republic, you know, they kind of have this unusual pattern in the World Cup and Euro Cups, but also an unusual pattern in Euro Cups themselves. But I think they've shown themselves as a capable team, and perhaps even a decent tournament team. You know, being able to get out of the group stage. You know, they made it to the quarterfinals of the last Euro, so that was a pretty good run. So I think it gives them something to build off. Turkey have been at the Euros too. They were pretty poor. I think they actually ranked 24th out of 24 teams at the last Euros based on their points totals and performances. So, yeah, I don't see Turkey as having a clear edge, and personally maybe favor the Czech Republic.
Interesting. Well, I'm not sure how much credit we're giving to the 2022 or the Nations League games in general, because they don't always seem to follow the pattern of team strength. We see here that Czech Republic is demoted from Group B, whereas Turkey and Georgia both promoted from League C, so they kind of wave to each other on the way down. But I'm not even sure that suggests the Czech Republic is a bit weaker. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, Czech Republic were relegated from League A, so all those teams will be in League B together. So I think it kind of shows they're probably all too good for League C and probably not strong enough for League A. So I think it kind of groups them roughly together, which I would argue is accurate.
Yeah, okay, well, so much for that point. Yeah, I really don't see that much between them. You brought up a couple of good points, the Czech Republic being, you know, a bit better in Euro Cup play, so maybe have a bit of an edge over Turkey there. The odds makers and the head-to-heads don't really shed that much light. I think it's just a wait and see on between these two.
Do you think it will come down just to their head-to-head match, or do you think it will be influenced by performances against other teams?
I do think Portugal's maybe vulnerable to dropping points, and Georgia also capable of spoiling. So I think good consistency will be needed there, and the consistency might play as big a role as the head-to-head. But definitely the head-to-head if one of them wins it. You know, but we saw in 2008, Czech Republic was winning 2-0 and Turkey came back to win 3-2. It shows how close it can be.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. We'll discuss maybe whether you see a third place team advancing here. I think that's significant to this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it benefits teams if there's one weak team in the group. You know, if you get a win, if you win one of your matches, you've got a decent chance at getting through, especially if you can kind of keep the goal difference at a respectable level. I mean, Turkey and Czech Republic will definitely be viewing their match against Georgia as a must-win. If they both win it, then they're, you know, probably both going through. And a tie may actually suit both teams in some regards.
Okay, well, that does kind of lead us into Georgia in playing an important role there, because, yeah, as you say, if both of them do beat Georgia, if Georgia comes out winless here or without any points, then probably the top three will advance. So do you give much hope to Georgia for getting a spoiler result here?
I do, actually. I think, you know, the previous Euros, Macedonia, North Macedonia played, and they didn't get a point in the end, but they were respectable and they were competitive. And I think before that, Albania, you know, they topped the group, I think, with Portugal. So I think when the Euros expanded, we knew that some of these kind of, you know, third third or fourth tier teams would get in. But the teams that have done so far have not been put to shame. They haven't been overran. Georgia have some decent players, and I think can be competitive against second and third, especially third tier teams, with Czech Republic and Turkey possibly are. So I definitely see them getting some positive result here.
Yeah, I remember in 2016 listening to a podcast, and it was ESPN, I think, and they were all upset that the tournament was expanding to 24 teams and leading to these third-tier teams, really. He was talking about Hungary at the time, but Hungary is a good case in point that they were a third-tier team there, but they performed well and kind of upset the thing. So I think it's upsetting to the European elitists who would just like to see maybe 8 teams in the tournament again. But I think countries like Georgia bring a little spice, and there is a definite chance of them pulling off a result and maybe not advancing from the group, but influencing it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think with North Macedonia, the passion of the players and the fans being their first ever tournament was really quite something. And I think Georgia will have that as well, this kind of welling up of wanting to do themselves proud. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be completely out of their depth. All of these teams, all 3 of them have proven themselves inconsistent at times. So, Georgia might have a bit less hope if they were playing a team that tends to always win or always get out of the group, even a team like Switzerland that's kind of dull and effective. But I think against these teams, there is hope for a spoiler result for sure.
Yeah, and it makes the tournament more interesting. Well, we saw, basically in terms of traditional strength and even things like FIFA rankings and stuff, that doesn't give them much hope. I was a bit surprised by 5% chance of passing the group, but actually discussing it here, I'm coming to agree with that. Not that I'll necessarily see them passing the group, but they will be in it maybe a bit more than I thought. So, they did beat Greece on penalties. They can definitely surprise.
Yeah. The big thing for them is you alluded to it earlier. They're quite strong at home, and that's where they get most of their results, including beating Greece and Luxembourg in the playoff. They are playing, obviously, on 3 neutral venues. So, that probably advantage that home field gives them obviously won't be a factor here. Yeah.
But definitely last place for me. Do you see them possibly pipping 3rd place?
I can't predict it. Possibility, sure, but no, I wouldn't be bold enough to predict it. I think a spoiler result is more likely in the form of a draw than a win.
Yeah, there is always the chance of things turning totally upside down. So while we do kind of recognize that possibility, it's hard to make predictions based on that. Yeah. And Georgia, they finished 4th in their qualifying group, so they don't have a lot of strength coming into this, but maybe an outside chance of a spoiler result there. And we didn't talk about Turkey and Czech Republic. Obviously, at least one of them is going to pass, and possibly both. How far do you see them getting?
Realistically, the round of 16. I don't see these teams going much further. That said, Czech Republic had kind of a shock result. They beat the Netherlands in the round of 16 at the last Euros. So, yeah, Czech Republic and Turkey have them in it, or have that type of result in them. Czech Republic got some points from League A teams, and Turkey finished ahead of Croatia. So it's possible that they put in one of these teams has a good tournament. I think it's one of these teams could potentially get hot. Again, I leave the possibility of them, one of these teams actually does take 1st place in the group, but more likely than not, they'll be paired against probably another top team if they finish 2nd or 3rd, and would not be the favorites in that game.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part. It is actually in Czech Republic and Turkey's DNA to turn in a really good tournament once in a while and take us by surprise. So I think that possibility is there. But on the surface of things, I agree with you that the round of 16 would be where they go out. And a good tournament for them would be making it to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Do you have anything to add before I pin you down here on your prediction?
I am ready for it.
Okay, lay it on us. How is this group going to end, Connor?
I'm going to say Portugal, Czech Republic, Turkey, Georgia. And I'm also going to say that every team gets and drops points. I don't see Portugal winning the group with 3 wins, and I don't see Georgia going out with 3 losses. So that's my prediction for this group.
Wow. Okay. Well, a little bit different than mine. I have Portugal, Turkey, Czech Republic, Georgia. I got to say you did persuade me a little bit on the Czech Republic there. And I said myself, it's very close. But I'll stick with what I originally thought, which was Turkey, Czech Republic. Got to disagree with you on Georgia. I think there is a possibility of them ending up with no points in this group, which would definitely then lead to 3 of the teams passing. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to argue. I mean, they might be like North Macedonia, where they valiant but ultimately fruitless. So maybe that if they put in that performance, I'd love to see them get a point. So maybe it's a bit more hope than expectation, but you never know. Yeah,
I join you in that hope. I do like Georgia and hope they get a point out of this. I think it would be a fun group if Portugal finishes 3rd again. Okay, well, that actually brings us to the end of our look at the groups and teams. We are going to embark on the player series here, and we're also going to be looking at the groups and teams for the Copa America coming up, which Canada is playing in, Connor. Canada, hang on. Canada playing against Argentina in their first game. So we have Alphonse Davies and company facing Messi and company. Woo!
Yeah, I look forward to that media cast with you. And because we're in Group F, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who do you predict as a winner of Euro 2024?
Oh, I mean, there really are no teams outstanding to me here. I'm a bit worried about Germany, even though they're hosts. I can't believe they didn't go through qualifying for this and develop their team, because they certainly seem to need it. England is looking good going in, but they often do, but somehow don't always get it done. And to me, I see France and perhaps even Portugal as the most talented in terms of players. I'm saying this off of the top of my head because you put me on the spot here. So I think English fans are going to be mad at me. And do you see any outside of those 4, or any comments on those 4?
The other teams in pot 1 are Spain and Belgium. So those kind of round out the top 6. I think England might have might have the highest odds overall. It might be the favorite for the tournament. And they certainly have the talent to do so. But I'm going to go with France. I think they're in a good period and might be stinging a little bit from, the World Cup defeat. And yeah.
Yeah. I was biting my nails there thinking, oh my God, he's going to mention a team that I haven't even thought of. And maybe Spain is that team, but it just seems like their quarterfinal curse is back. And we didn't even mention the defending champions, Italy.
Yeah, who are way down in pot 4. Yeah, there's lots of contenders, and I agree with you. I don't necessarily see one team being like, oh, it's theirs to lose. If Germany were in a good period, certainly, as hosts, they would have been heavy favorites, but they're not. And I think that opens the door.
Yeah, well, that makes it an exciting tournament. No strong favorite going in, and the possibility of some team really finding their form in the cup, and maybe a team that we don't even expect.
Yeah.
Like Greece in 2004.
That's right.
All right, well, good talking to you about this, and I suppose I'll see you next time with the Copa America groups and teams.
Yes, thanks for doing the series. We look forward to the next one.
We would like to thank Mike Tripak, Make Sound Music, and Pixabay for the wonderful background music called Dance 90s accompanying this media cast.